Welcome back to E-Time's live coverage of the 2011 DesignCon from the Santa Clara Convention Center. We are coming to you for our first ever live streaming program, a bit of an experiment. It seems to be going pretty well so far. I said the last minute break was going to be 2 minutes. Was it 2 minutes? We weren't counting. But it gave you an opportunity to go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, load up a tequila shot or something. If you're stuck in the weather in Chicago, it's probably a good idea. Our next guest is one of the most interesting guys in the technology industry today, Jbruggemen, who is now the CMO with Cadence Design. I've known John since his days at Wind River, where he tried to bring his marketing creativity to bear there. And so I want to ask you the first question. Your experience in the embedded space, which as we know has its own unique marketing challenges, to the EDA space, which has its own unique marketing challenges. What are you learning? What are you bringing from your past experience to Cadence?
A lot of questions in there.
Yeah.
And I just came from the Chicago people you're talking. I just did Oprah this morning, so it's nice to go from a lousy talk show to a great one here.
Is she still dieting?
I'm thrilled to be here, and we don't talk about Oprah.
We don't.
She's too exalted. But let me get to it's a fun question, and I want to talk about it as a marketer and a professional marketer, but also as a student of technology industries. And so let's start with the industry. And,
okay.
And I looked at EDA and I said, oh my God, as a marketer, this is an industry in trouble. We've got tremendous price pressure. Average discount rates are exploding year after year after year. It's becoming harder and harder to extract value out of the customer. The buyer has moved over the last 10 years from a vice president to a director to a manager to purchasing to supply chain to the ECAD group. It's very, very hard to have a strategic dialogue about this technology with anybody at the customer space, and this is an industry that needed a fresh look, a new point of view, someone that wasn't burdened or buried in the legacy of this is why we can't do it because we tried it this way before, we tried it that way. So who could give it a fresh set of eyes, a fresh look? And I thought, man, as a marketer, what a great place to go and indulge yourself. And so that made it very attractive. But then from the technology side, I was at Wind River. And at Wind River, we were going after a very, very interesting problem, which was how do you help companies integrate hardware and software? Right? The system companies, the Wind River customers, built the biggest cell phone marketplaces, the biggest network equipment, aerospace and defense, and they were putting systems together, and the challenge became how do you integrate hardware and software? And I'll tell you, at Wind River, we could never solve that problem. We couldn't solve that problem because we didn't understand enough about the hardware. And I became fascinated by this problem. I said, I got to engage and try to help with this one. I think it is the problem for technology for the next 5 or so years. And I said the only people who have any chance of solving this problem is EDA. Because EDA has enough visibility into the hardware. They have enough experience with the semiconductor companies who will be the system companies of the future. And let's go and try to solve the problem from the other side of the equation. And for the last year and a half, I've been at Cadence trying to really tackle this hardware-software integration problem, and we're making progress.
But at the same time, you're coming from an industry with a lot of little companies to one that has a few big companies whose leading-edge, high-margin design start customers are dwindling down to a precious few. That's a huge challenge.
It's a massive challenge, not just for the EDA companies, but for the semiconductor companies and for the end system companies. The ripples in the supply chain are changing the economics and how you make money and when you make money and how profitably you can make money. It's an interesting problem for the MBA students at the best business schools. This is going to be one to watch.
So you said that you don't have a lot to pimp here. But tell us a little bit, because you've come back and you've now sort of framed the argument as a holistic approach to design. EDA 360, I think, is how you phrase that in your materials. Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean outside of sort of the marketing vibe?
Okay, so I think the semiconductor companies, when they were working at 90 nanometers and 60 and even down to 40, the challenges were solvable challenges, and the approach was really, let's get best-in-class point tools. And if we can really get best-in-class point tools, we've got the capability in-house, and we're going to stitch this together, and we'll create a unique design flow for our own organization, and all is well. And I think until this last tech downturn, it wasn't a reasonable approach, a great way to solve the problem. But where we're headed now with semiconductor companies are no longer providing ASICs or SoCs, they're providing systems, real systems on a chip, and software is as important as hardware, and the challenge they have to deliver is much broader than it's ever been. Going from node to node, when I go from 40 to 28 to 20, the problems exponentially magnify, and the consumer requirements around power and around cost and around had fundamentally changed this industry, and no longer is best-in-class point tool approach working. It's just not working for the industry. And what they really need is help stitching this stuff together. And not only stitching it together, but once I stitch it together, how do I expand into software? So it's a two-dimensional problem, massive struggle, and we've seen that if EDA were to stay on its course, the course that it was going on, it was perilous. I mean, that's a big word. Perilous path for EDA. And we have painted a path for EDA to get out of that peril. And we named it, we coined it, and who cares what the name was. The point is, we better look at this holistically, end to end. We better incorporate how do we think about software and validating and verifying a system, not just hardware or not just software, but in its totality, or our end customers will never meet their time to market, their cost, their quality challenges.
Right. Are you guys back at DAC this year?
We are back and badder than ever.
Back and badder than ever.
We did a really cool thing in the summer. We acquired a company called Denali. And a lot of people thought, man, best-in-class IP, fantastic memory modeling, what a great acquisition for Cadence. And I looked at it and I said, nope, they had the biggest, baddest party I ever saw at an engineering-based event, and we bought them for the party. And the way you should think of us next year is not a big, giant presence at DAC, but taking the Denali Party and putting it on steroids. I'm a huge fan of steroids, and we're going to pump it up, and I think you're going to see a Denali Party on a scale you've never seen before.
Well, that's a hell of a challenge, and I look forward to seeing that. Are you going to dance or sing or do anything?
I've been known to do crazy stuff. The Denali Party was always famous for anybody could come and drink their eyes red.
What?
And I've heard, barely seen, or hardly remember, but we certainly will take the best that we've done in the past and the craziness that I've done in industries that you've been with me in, and we'll bring it all together.
Very cool.
If you're not going to DAC, it makes no sense to me, because this is the party of the year. I think Paris and all will be there.
Paris Hilton?
Or somebody like that.
Charlie Sheen?
Wow, now we're going in crazy places. Why not? Charlie's a good friend from the past. Let's invite him. That
would be fantastic. During the day, though, if you can sort of put your Cadence hat aside a little bit, the last question I want to ask you is about DAC as an event. What's the theme going to be this year? What's everybody going to kind of be grappling with?
Yeah, I think there are a couple major problems for the industry, and I think we'll see that in spades. I think low power. We got to deal with low power. As an industry, we don't have a good solution. It's very hard for our customers, and I think that will be an issue. I think mixed signal and doing real mixed signal design, and how do we do that much more efficiently, I think is going to be an issue. I think software, where you see software more meaningfully and in more places. You and I worked long ago around embedded software conference, the ESC. I think we'll see elements of that start to appear inside DAC, and kind of a merging of those worlds on a bigger scale than we've seen previously.
So, you mentioned Charlie Sheen earlier. You're a good friend of his. You know, when Lindsay Lohan says that she's worried about Charlie Sheen, you know you got problems.
But a great tweet.
Yeah.
And it just shows you Twitter's one of the most important news sources, because I can't see that in the New York Times, but I can get that on Twitter. That's fantastic.
I know. And you have 63,000 followers on Twitter?
I think I had 63,000 a year ago. I think it's gone up since then. So,
no doubt.
No doubt.
No doubt. Well, Jbruggemen, CMO of Cadence, great to have you in the EDA space, and I look forward to breaking bread and hearing what you guys will be doing at DAC.
Hey, congratulations on this live streaming. This is fantastic. This is something I think engineers around the world want to see, and you guys are doing it. So, congratulations.
Well, thanks. It's a two-man operation right now. We were just doing 3 hours today. It's a fair amount of work. So, David Blas, if you're out there listening, we need to invest, and we need some sponsors.
See,
Sponsors would be good.
That's what I like.
Sponsors.
And in fact, I brought my checkbook, and I'm $30,000 check. I was going to give it to pay Charlie back. I'm willing to slide it your way to do more of this live streaming.
Life is good. John, thank you.